Welcome everybody to our webinar on custom detail screens within Sage HRMS. This is the first part of a multi-part webinar series that we're going to be doing just to show what we see as some of the most commonly used or in some cases commonly underused and under-leveraged components within Sage HRMS. So we've got a couple people from the SWK team that are going to be presenting today. So myself, Nathan Triplett, I lead our HCM practice here. And Jeff Olson, as our technical expert, is going to be taking us through some overview, a little bit of training around the custom detail pages within Sage HRMS. So a little bit about why we think this is important. So when we think about an HR system, I like to use this wheel to kind of symbolize the employee lifecycle and the components that we help with HR technology to track. And so if we start, we think about recruiting and finding applicants, we get into workforce management, we think about, onboarding and bringing all that detail from the system, new hire paperwork, employee handbooks, we get them into your environment. Maybe we're doing 30, 60, 90-day reviews, annual reviews, so capturing performance management, all of those that are core HR users. And then we've got just a couple fields there. Current review date, last review date, and, reason for the last change. Our compensation and benefits, we're capturing all of that as part of the process and pulling that data together. Learning management, some folks are using outside the system, some are using events, some are using custom detail pages, which we can speak to. Attendance and payroll management, which you're looking at some of the names on the call today. I think we've got quite a few payroll users here. So, understanding the data that needs to be captured and associated from a payroll perspective, through exit management, and certainly our compliance reports that come out of the system. And what we find is Sage HRMS, it has not only within the core database areas to capture a lot of this information, but there's a lot of additional modules that you can add on. Again, looking at the folks in the call, not everybody has all of these modules, but what we do recommend for everybody, to the extent as possible, is to try to make Sage HRMS that single source of truth. And so if we think of all the information that you're capturing, all the certifications, the licensures, the company property, what we tend to find when we work with our customers is there's a lot of information in Sage HRMS that's great and that's reportable. But there's also still a lot of information captured outside the system. Tracked, maybe it's in an Outlook calendar, maybe it's in Excel, an Access database, and a file folder. And that's really, for us, what we want to focus on today in the conversation and the presentation from Jeff is how we use custom detail pages to be able to extend the functionality of Sage HRMS to give you that single point of truth, where if you're looking for the most current information on an employee, you're not wondering, where should I go look? You're always just knowing, let's go look at Sage HRMS. So the format that we're going to have today is Jeff's going to take us through some screens, give you an overview of what the custom detail pages can do, a little around building them. I do have the chat open and welcome questions throughout. So we have all Sage HRMS users here on the call today. We encourage you to ask questions, go down areas. If it's something that's applicable to custom details, fantastic. If you want to go outside that a little bit, we're here and happy to answer your questions. So as Jeff goes through the presentation, I'll be monitoring that throughout, and then we'll have some time at the end of it as well, at the end of our presentation, where we'll open up, the lines for chats and to answer questions there too. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Jeff and let him get started with the presentation. So Jeff, you should have controls.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. And thank everyone for joining us. We're going to spend some time looking at custom detail screens, and I'm going to take you through an example of how to actually build a custom detail screen. And again, this call is being recorded and you'll have access to it. So the first thing I want to talk about is, so often you have data that you're capturing, and that data may not be standard fields in Sage HRMS. And as you capture that data, so often you find yourself working in another application like Excel to record information about employees so that you can do your jobs, so that you can track information and report on information that's appropriate for the requirements you have. So we're going to use today this example of employee certification. This is a simple example, and I've got a spreadsheet here that shows employees listed with ID, name, their hire date, the certification date, renew date, cost, their department, and their manager. And this is perhaps a good example of trying to capture data so that you can report on it and track it appropriately. Now, what a lot of folks don't realize is that this information, even though you're able to track it in a spreadsheet, which is great, the problem is you've got to maintain that information separately. And so often you find that you're duplicating data entry, like employee ID numbers and names and hire dates and that kind of thing. So let's take a moment and let's take a look at some of the custom detail screens that are in my sample data. So if I go into John Baird and I go to the custom section, custom details, I'm going to give you a few examples before we go into building. I'm going to give you a few examples of what custom details might be. We've got here a common one called company property. This happens to be a multi-record custom detail screen. And the detail screen we're going to build today is also going to be a multi-record custom detail screen. These fields that you see here have been added to the system, and you don't have to have programming knowledge or any kind of special technical skills to build these custom detail screens. But you can see that there's information here that needs to be captured and maintained, and we can do it right within Sage HRMS. And in the case of company property, you may have multiple records in here. In this case, there's laptop and cell phone. Another example of custom detail screens is where you need to be able to consolidate some information that's already existing in Sage HRMS. There are many screens in Sage HRMS. For example, demographics and job, pay screens. And sometimes, in the case, an example of maybe an income verification, you may need to go to multiple screens in order to capture that data or to be able to view that data. And with custom details, you can consolidate information onto one screen from within Sage HRMS. So you're seeing here a consolidation of information from all the existing or from some of the existing screens in Sage HRMS so that you can view them on one screen instead of having to jump between multiple screens to see this information. So this is another example of how custom details can be used to simplify your job. Another example might be, let me pull this back up again. You may have external applications that are integrated or could be integrated with Sage HRMS. And in that case, sometimes those outside data applications or the data that they need may be more than what is stored in HRMS. For example, here's a payroll interface. And there's additional information that can be filled out on this employee that would be passed to that payroll solution. Another example of this is HR Actions. HR Actions has some modules, some capabilities that need information that is in addition to what is the standard or the standard fields in Sage HRMS. So that information can be captured in a custom detail screen and then passed on to an external data source. So those are just some few examples of how custom details can work. And the sky is the limit because there's no limit to the number of custom detail screens or the number of fields that you can add to custom detail screens for tracking purposes. So let's jump back to our example. We're going to build a custom detail screen that's going to capture this information. Instead of putting it in a spreadsheet, we can put it into Sage HRMS. So I'm going to minimize this or just drag it off the screen. And well, let me bring it back for just a minute. Some of the elements in this data set may be things that you want to build a user-defined table for. For example, certifications. You may have certain certifications that you want to track. In my example here, I've kept it very simple. I've got CPR and first aid, but you may have a long list. And if you build user-defined lookups for these fields, you can control what data is input into a field in a custom detail screen. So we're going to build a user-defined lookup for certifications. So the first thing we need to do when we want to build a custom detail screen is kind of understand what data we're going to be capturing. And we need to first, if we're going to have a custom lookup, go to Enterprise Setup. Cancel out of here. So I'm going to go to Enterprise Setup, and I'm going to define a user-defined code table. You see there's already code tables defined here that are being used in some of the other custom detail screens in our demo environment. But I'm going to add one called certifications. And now I have just created or added this holding place in the system where I can build user-defined lists. So let's now, from here, save that, go to the employee codes, and down here under code tables, there's a link for user-defined. And you'll see that the same list that we saw in our enterprise setup is listed here under code type. And we're going to build a simple lookup table or user-defined code table for certifications. So I'm going to add CPR. And we're going to add first aid. Now these will be a lookup field in our custom, when we design our custom detail screen. So once I've created the user-defined codes, the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into designing the screen. And you can see as we go through this that it's non-technical for the most part. So design custom details is under setup, system, and design custom details. And any previously designed details will be listed. And we're going to add a new one. We're going to call this employee certifications. This is going to be a multi-record custom detail. If I didn't select multi-record, it would allow me to add information just once. We want to be able to add multiple records because an employee may have multiple certifications. I also can, if I have more fields that I need to add than what will appear on a single screen, I can have multiple pages and multiple screens within my record. But we're not going to have that many fields, so I'll leave it as no for multi-page. When I select this, it brings me to a screen that's blank. And the first thing I'm going to do is just click in that blank area. And I'm going to start building my custom detail screen. The first field I'm going to add is a custom field. So I'm going to select custom fields. I'm going to select add. And the custom field, the first one, is going to be type. We'll call it search type. And we can name the field, and it's an 8-character field. And we can give it a data type. A data type, we have all the normal kind of data types you'll see in Excel or in a database, but we also have the code table data type. So I'm going to select code table, and I'm going to select the certifications code table that I had just built in my user-defined fields. I'm going to click OK, and I just added the very first field to my user-defined or my custom detail screen. I'm also going to add, I clicked OK, let me go back in. I'm also going to add I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want that, I'm going to delete it. Okay, I'm going to add another custom details or custom field. I'm going to call this one my mouse isn't clicking, hold on. Okay, I'm going to create another custom field, and I'm going to add a new one called certification date or cert date. And this is going to be a data type of date. And I'm going to select and add another one. We're going to call this renew date, because I want to know when these certifications need to be renewed. I'm just going to call this REN date. And I needed to make that hold on, getting ahead of myself. Add renew date, REN date. That has to be a date field. And we're going to also do a cost field, because perhaps you need to track certification cost by employee. Maybe you have a company policy that you offer up to $500 of certifications a year or something like that. So we're going to do cost. This is going to be numeric. And it's going to be 2 decimal places. And incidentally, I can require a field, and I can make a field secure so that it can be seen or not seen by certain users in the system. Okay, in addition to type of certification, the date, the renew date, and the cost, I also want to see some additional information. And that information is information that exists in the HRMS database. I'm going to restructure these lines by clicking and dragging. And there are actually 2 columns that I can build on a detail screen. So I'm going to go over to the right. I just click to the right, and I'm going to select the employee hire date. going to do last hire. And I'm going to also put in the department code, select department code. And I'm going to put in the manager. So we can see on this screen some additional information that might be useful as we look at the custom detail screen. Another field type I'm going to show you, and I'm going to use a simple example, is the calculate. And I keep doing that. The calculate type. So I'm going to add, I'm going to call this, I'm going to build the employee's name. A simple example, but and I'm just going to call this EE name. And we're going to build a calculated field. The calculated field can be any expression you want to build. In this case, I'm going to just use a simple formula to add last name, and the first name. Just so you can see that this is a function that's available to you that can actually open up quite a bit of functionality. So I built this expression and I'm going to save it. Okay, we're going to click OK here, and we just built our employee certifications custom detail screen. Let's take a look at it. Close this screen. And now we have employee certifications listed in the custom detail screen list. Click that. And I'm going to add a record. So for John Baird, he received his VPA certification, and he received it at the beginning of this year. And it needs to be recertified every 2 years, for example. So I put in a renew date, and it cost $100. But you can see over here, these are fields that were pulled in from the standard employee data in HRMS that can be displayed here. So it expands the functionality of the custom detail screen to see additional information. And here's the custom calculation field that I had added with the simple formula. So I'm going to add one more record. So we're going to select first aid, and he got first aid on the 15th in 2019, and that's recertification is every 3 years. So we'll put 2022 there, and it costs $150. So now, instead of having all this information in a separate spreadsheet or a separate application, it's here. It's easily accessible, and it's easily maintained. You don't have to duplicate entry of employee data, and you don't have to keep track of who's hired, who's terminated, and any changes that occur to an employee record that might affect this information. So it's greatly simplified, simplifying the ability to track additional information in Sage HRMS, and the sky's the limit. Now, the other thing I want to show you is how easy it is to get to this information. You can use query. So we're going to go into secure query, and we are going to create a new query called certifications. And I can make this query private or public. I'll make it public so other people can see it. And when I do that, I go in and I just select the data elements that I want. So I'm going to select demographics, and I'm going to select multi-record custom details. And here's my employee certifications. And then I can simply add whatever fields I want to this query. I'll do employee ID, name. We're going to add certification. We're going to add the cert type. We can drag and drop these around. We're going to throw on renew date. And we can add any other fields we want to this if we wanted to. So let's go ahead and click OK here and view the data. And oh, we got it's fun. Hang on. Well, sorry to have to do this. Okay, those generally happen when we have some data sets that aren't quite right. So, pull this back up. Go in and I'm going to simplify this. I think I've removed that. See if that doesn't work. There we go. So I didn't filter out terminated employees. There's John Baird, and there's the certifications that we had added. Simple process, and we can get the data out easily and simply. And if there's any questions, we're obviously would love to answer them, take them and address them, but I'll turn the time back to you, Nathan.
Perfect, thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff noted, certainly please feel free to share any questions. I can pass controls back over to him if there's things that we want to drill down into a little further. Let me just get my screen here and our display settings. So we plan to continue these sessions. You saw a little sneak preview of Secure Query. That is the next one of these we do plan to do. So we're trying to do ongoing training sessions for things that we really do think that every one of our customers could find some value in. So again, we are planning Secure Query next month. Keep an eye on your emails or reach out to your account manager and we'll make sure you get a link to sign up for that. If you have any suggestions for things that you'd like to see from future trainings, either as part of the call today or as a follow-up, reach out to us, let us know. We're happy to take your suggestions. And again, we want to try to make these as relevant as possible. A couple different ways that we can help. I know some of you on here have gone through a technology assessment. Really, what we want to make sure we're doing with that is look at your footprint around HR technology and see how is it aligned with your goals today, where you're going in the future, and then we'll make recommendations. We want to make sure, first and foremost, you're getting the most out of the footprint that you have. So if you were to add anything else, that it's going to be able to be implemented seamlessly, and you're going to get the real value out of any functionality you're adding to the system. So we can kind of build a immediate, short, long-term roadmap for your technology. Everybody on the call here is a Sage HRMS customer. We hope you're all happy Sage HRMS customers, but we We do have other options if that's something you want to look at, maybe outsourcing that payroll function, different areas that we can help you with. And if there is a point where we require customization, know that those are things that we can do as well. We tend to lead and focus on areas like what you saw today with custom detail pages. It's a little misleading because it's called custom detail pages, but I really think of that as personalization, because everything that Jeff showed you, it's all surface level. And what I mean by that is when you would get, new versions of the software, upgrades, quarterly releases for your tax tables, all of that's going to survive the process that you build in custom detail pages. So we're not changing any source code. It's not going to impact your ability to have mobility, right, to new versions within the software at all. We do have an email address. Obviously, we will send you the PowerPoint presentation. You have Jeff and my contact information, but do have a general email address that will hit us both, as well as some additional folks within our organization. So certainly, encourage you to reach out to us, ask questions of your account managers. They can engage us to make sure the folks are as absolutely successful as you can possibly be, and leveraging Sage HRMS to its full capabilities. So I'm going to pause just for a minute or so to see if any questions pop up, or if you're unable to type those in, see if you can use the raise your hand function, and we'll make sure we get anything out there addressed that needs to be. All right, not seeing any questions come in. Seeing a couple folks drop off. So want to be respectful of your time. We appreciate you sharing some time this afternoon with us. Again, any future suggestions or questions following up from this, reach out to us. We'll send a recording and the PowerPoint presentation after this meeting. We appreciate your time, the opportunity to be of service, and you folks have a great weekend. Thanks all.